presents a panel discussion, 80's Ladies of Horror, featuring Dee Wallace, Lynn Lowry, and Patty Mullen. Moderated by Tim Kretschmann. Recorded live at Horror Realm 2024 in Pittsburgh.
All right. This sounds like a group. Now let's see if this goes. Our next panel at Horror Realm is the Ladies of the 80's. The Ladies of the 80's. I got your spot here, Lynn's there. I'm hoping the mics are all working. Now, this diverse panel has worked with directors like Wes Craven, Steven Spielberg, David Cronenberg, Joe Dante, George Romero, Peter Jackson, Lloyd Kaufman, and Rob Zombie. I'm missing about 1,000. Titles include The Hills Have Eyes, Reanimate, The Crazies. We got Frankenhooker, Cat People. Patty's on her way, by the way. Cujo. We have The Howling, Doom Asylum. I'm making sure I'm not saying the Barbara Crampton ones right now because she can't make it. We have The Frighteners. You're Next. The list is dizzying. According to IMDb, there are over 500 total screen credits, with 229 of them categorized as horror. According to numbers.com, their total combined box office total adds up to nearly $925 million. Let that sink in.
Would you like that? And we're going in where the bucket's at.
This is Dee Wallace and Lynn Lowry. Well, thank you so much for making some time. We know you've been signing, and both of you have been signing a lot, but we want to take a little time to talk about the history of horror films in the 80s. So, wanted to talk a little bit about both of you have had to emote fear on screen. And it's not one of the easiest things to translate through the lens. It's very different in when you're face to face, like if you're at a haunted house and somebody grabs you, it's very frightening. How do you push that fright through the lens to people? How do you make that happen?
Go ahead.
I'm starting with the easy one.
Acting classes. And you just sort of put yourself in that situation and how you would really feel if there was something after you, and how your breath would change in your eyes, and then looking around, and then you're just nervous and scared, and then sometimes you can think of a time in your life when you were really scared, and you can use that and bring that feeling forward. So that's kind of how I do it. If I have to scream, instead of just like screaming, I always try to start low, like I'm seeing something that's making me, and then it's like that shock of and surprise of the scream. So that's how I do it.
Can I study with you? I think the trick to being in fear is to really do less.
Yes.
In real life, when we get really frightened, we freeze. I just had an experience on a set that I won't mention, where they wanted me to be very, very hysterical when I came into the room. And I said, I can do that. I can give you anything you want, but it's not truthful. And they said, well, why do you think it's not truthful? And I said, well, because I've lived thousands of moments in my life, and what you do is you go, I have to handle this. I have to handle this. I can't handle that, right? And so the director looked at me and went, all right, well, try it your way. And ran onto the set after we shot the scene and went, oh my God, Dee, thank you. You're so right on. Because if we play it before you feel it, there's nothing for you to get on the ride for, right? So I think you just, I know it sounds stupid, but you really have to believe there's a werewolf. You really have to believe there's a rabid dog, even though you just tied its tail down so you can't see it wagging. You have to really, that's our job, is to be in the moment of all the moments you would never hope to be in.
Now, when you made Cujo, did you know that there was a connection between Cujo and Lynn's movie, I Drink Your Blood? Because there's rabies in both of them. And she actually caught rabies in the film.
I'm sure you knew that.
I'm sure I didn't. I didn't read the novel purposely before I did the movie.
You never saw I Drink Your Blood? Come on.
I am really good at doing them. I'm really shitty at watching them. I'm such a wuss. My older brother, scared me to death when I was 8 years old with The Bride of Frankenstein. My mother made him let me sleep with him for 3 months because I was so scared. So no, I'm sorry.
I'll send you a copy.
Okay. I'll watch it.
Fantastic. Well, tell us a little bit about Cujo. I think it's often in the conversation for best Stephen King adaptations.
Yeah.
The Stephen King adaptations seem to be a genre all in itself.
Yeah, he's prolific, that's for sure.
What do you think worked in that? Because this was one of the early good Stephen King adaptations. For a while, Stephen King adaptations, people were saying, oh, it's one of those, it's not that good. And then the one came Cujo and kind of changed the conversation.
Thank you.
What did they do right?
God, there's so many people that go into making a film and making a film brilliant. So many people. I have to give kudos to the executive producer, Dan Blatt. He had a very strong vision of Cujo. I'm gonna forget his name. The director, there was another very well-known director who was hired to do Cujo first. We had never been able to meet. I had done The Howling for Dan Blatt, so he, and then E.T. came out and I was like this big name, so they just hired me for Cujo. I had never gotten to meet the director, and I walked on the first day and he went, "What are you in?" And I said, I'm in my costume, sir. And he said, no. You have to be in a see-through blouse with no bra. This is all about the sexual connection between you and the dog. Whoa. And I went, is Dan on the set? Please, I need to see Dan. And so we went off to the side, and I told him what happened, and he went, what? And I said, did nobody have a production meeting about any of this? Not the picture I signed up for, Dan, you know I don't do nudity. He went, I can't explain it, Dee, but I'll handle it. The next day, Louis Teague, who had worked with Cujo for a very long time on Cujo with Dan, before another studio took it over and wanted this other gentleman. So they just brought Louis on. He was all up to speed, and he went, "Keep what?" So, yeah.
So
I don't know if I answered your question.
I think it was close enough.
Okay.
Call it. Both of you have worked with some huge directors and iconic directors that are named over and over. What do you think it is that separates a everyday director, somebody that's phoning it in and collecting a paycheck, to some of these characters like Cronenberg, like Spielberg? They're just able to transcend the years and people remember their projects. I guess we'll start with Pittsburgh Romero, or
I think it's just well, when I worked with Romero and Cronenberg, they were in their 20s, and they had passion, and they wanted to make a name for themselves. They wanted to make a film that would be remembered, by people. And 50 years later, people are still watching the Crazies, and I think next year or the year after is the 50th of the Shivers, which was the first film ever to have body horror. And honestly, I don't think David really, he had no idea that he was going to go on to become, David Cronenberg. But he had this, this vision, and he had this energy, and the crew and the cast and everyone, it was like family. We wanted to make something that we hoped would be something special and something different, and that people would really remember. And a lot of the newer directors that I work with, they just don't have that kind of, passion, energy, But a lot of them also have that dream and have that passion. And I've had wonderful experiences with the independent films that I've been doing recently. So it's really exciting. It's kind of hard to tell the difference between, what makes a great, great, great director or not. And I think a lot of it is just luck.
I think you can't be a good director without a great script. And then you can't be a great director without a great cast. And you can't be a great director without a great editor. We all come together, and I think that the people that I've worked with that have really made long-lasting films that make a difference, didn't give a shit whether it was going to be a big film or not. Everybody just came in to really do their best and to bring to life, in the most truthful way, the way you could bring characters alive. And E.T. was supposed to be Steven's little film. Wasn't supposed to be a big blockbuster. Poltergeist was supposed to be the big blockbuster that he was turning out that year. You just never know. You never know what the, and you guys are really responsible for what makes a film a hit and what makes it last. E.T. came along at the right time when the world needed hope and needed to be reminded of love and how that gets us all home.
So
I just wanted to say one thing about E.T. My dad, who looked like John Wayne and who was like, a man, he cried when he's
Yeah.
high too.
My Marine husband cried when he saw E.T.
Well,
Thank God we're going to pay our rent.
wasn't it? Well, wasn't E.T. originally kind of like a siege movie? By the time you saw it, I think it was A Boy's Life, but originally it was going to be
I have
a
no
horror
idea. I have no idea. I can't give you any insight on that. It was a boy's life. We had to literally go behind locked doors to read the script. Yeah.
How long did it take you to make the decision to go?
By the time I finished the script, I called my agents and I said, I don't think it's going to do a lot for me, but I think it's going to do a lot for the world, and I want to be a part of it.
That's fantastic. That's great.
That's awesome.
And it was, wasn't it?
Yes, it
Yes,
was.
It was. What didn't work was the Atari 2600 game.
No, but if you can find one now, they're worth a lot.
They are. They are. Did you ever play it?
Hell no.
It's hard. It's very hard. So I see that Patty joined us now.
Hi.
Thank you. I have to ask you, with Frankenhooker, do you see any similarities between Frankenhooker and Poor Things that's out right now? They seem to be stealing your face in there.
No, that's a book that was written a long time ago. Maybe they stole the face, but I haven't seen it, so I really can't, I hear there's a lot of similarities, but I've yet to see it, so I don't know.
Well, check a few of the trailers, and it's pretty striking. Has anybody else seen that in the trailer? See, you're getting some nodding heads.
There's definitely some similarities.
It's a little
Well,
interesting.
guys, really, is there an original story anymore?
Why do you think that is?
Because we've done them all. And there's a familiarity to going back to living through the same trauma, told through different eyes with different people, but it's the same damn trauma that we all go through in our lives.
So it's a Joseph Campbell, 1,000 Faces of a Hero stuff that you're telling the scenes to recycle over and over.
Yeah. Don't we do it in our own lives? Don't we play out the same old stories we've been telling forever?
Exactly.
Yeah. You want a different life, tell a different story.
There you go.
So, Lynn, you have 43 upcoming credits in IMDb. How can you be making 43 movies simultaneously? Please explain this to the rest of the crowd.
That's not true.
Okay.
And some of those didn't make it, they just didn't come off the IMDb,
Okay,
I
so
wish that I did have.
Listen, you can't take a lot of stock in IMDb. I'm still married to the husband I've been divorced from for 10 years.
why isn't that fixed?
Because we have no control over
You
it.
have no control at all. Okay.
Duh. That's a lot of credits, though, even if half of them aren't coming out, baby. Good for you.
Now, do you ever, and I'll leave this open, it's one thing to know if a movie is going to be a hit or not. I've asked that question in past. People say you never really can tell what's going to be a hit. But can you tell what's going to be memorable? Whether, once you know that the movie's a hit, are you like, okay, when I go to the conventions, they're going to ask me about this, or they're going to talk about this scene?
No. No is the short. For me, again, you guys make us. Do you understand? If you don't like it, if you don't get it, if the audience doesn't wrap their arms around it, we go do something else. And hope that one flies. But timing is so important, and how it's released. God, there's a really famous picture, and I can't remember what, but it came out, and it just was flat. It went nowhere. And they re-released it, went nowhere. They juggled a few things, and they promoted it in an entirely different way, and then it was a major hit. It's crazy, but it's all psychological.
Well, we're seeing that with Netflix, right? If something goes on that front page and they didn't really do anything, all of a sudden everybody's talking about it. Yeah, the film. I know Cobra Kai didn't do anything on YouTube. They stick it on Netflix front page and it becomes a hit. And they didn't change anything, right?
Yeah, well, I think that's the problem with our whole society right now. We're not thinking for ourselves, guys.
Nope.
We got to start thinking for ourselves and not buy everything we read, not buy everything we hear. The world is at a pivotal point now in history where love's going to reign or hate and destruction's going to reign. And we're the ones that have to choose, period.
In the 80s, it was more open to sexuality portrayed on the screen.
Yeah, I did a lot of that.
But Generation Z has really said they don't want sexuality in their films. They don't even want love storylines in their films, and we're seeing Hollywood. What's the place for sexuality these days in filmmaking? Right? We're seeing.
Honey, it depends on what genre you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing a sexploitation film, there's a lot of room for sex. That's why people are going to see sexploitation films. You know, but when I'm offered a horror film like Cujo, it's a sex thing between the dog and you, and you've got to see your tits through the blouse.
Right.
You know, not what I do, not who I am, not what I'm interested in.
So, did you have sex with that dog?
Only after we were shooting together.
That's okay then.
And you know, there's a place for everything, don't you think? There's a place for
Time and a place.
high sexuality for those who people, no pun intended, get off on that. And, you know, for straight, beautiful stories, and for straight, beautiful stories that are filled with love. I mean, you can't, there's not a rule, I don't think. Do you?
No, it's all what you're comfortable with, and what you
Yeah.
feel okay with.
I don't get cast anymore in sex parts,
I never did.
but I'm ready.
Oh my God. That was good.
I'm going to bring up Cat People 1982 when you're attacked by a panther and are crawling away on some stairs. And the most incredible physics moment of all time, you somehow turned over on your back and your blouse open.
Yes.
How did that happen? There's no gravitational pull on Earth that could have made that happen.
That was a nightmare. I fell down those steps like 25 times.
Oh, my
They
goodness.
couldn't get the bra to pop open. They had it on strings. They had it on Velcro. They had me doing it. You know, I don't know how. Paul Schrader wanted all the women's tits to show in the film, so you know we had to do it. But yeah, no, it was very difficult, and I actually got quite hurt. Rug burned, nails in my hand that they didn't take out on the steps when I came down.
Jesus.
Very insensitive stuff for a big Hollywood film like that.
They spent a lot of money on that.
They spent spend a lot, you know, and I have a great scene in it, so I have no regrets about doing it, but it was a really hard shoot for me.
Yeah. You have no idea I'm actually writing a book now called Horror Stories from the Life in Horror Films. Because what went on behind the scenes, a lot worse than what you see on camera. Yeah. You get hurt a lot.
So we're going to switch a little bit to the cult films, and Patty, I'd like to ask you a little bit about when you made Frankenhooker and Doom Asylum. Did you know they were going to live beyond the regular theatrical run and become what they became?
You know, with Doom Asylum, it was a very low budget film, but the director was great. Richard Friedman. He has a lot of Friday the 13th. Remember when that was a series? There's a lot of those under his belt and a lot of experience with that. So I thought it would be, you know, decent and okay, and it turned out decent and okay. And but I didn't think it was going to be, you know, this great, you know, movie. I mean, I just thought it was going to be a low-budget horror film, which wasn't what it was. But Frankenhooker, as soon as I read it, like I was like, oh, I can do this. This is going to be. I knew it was going to be good, you know. And it's kind of like a time capsule, because at that time New York was really gritty and really dirty and really crazy, and it's just the way it was. So yeah, as soon as I read Frankenhooker, I knew that I wanted to be a part of it. And that, as soon as I read from and we talked about it, I agreed to do it on, you know, that day. So.
Okay. Now, Dee and Lynn, you've done a number of Hollywood films and independent films. Do you feel, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Because I'm guessing they're on both ends, right?
Sure. You want to go? Okay. Yeah, there are pros and cons to both. Independent films, you shoot a lot faster, which I like. I mean, I was on the set of E.T. for 3 weeks and never walked on the set. Drives me crazy. You know, we're like racehorses. As soon as you pick us up from the stable, we want to go. Yeah. And but on the other hand, studio movies always have more money. And thank you. And you have more time to develop the characters if you need it. And they're able to oftentimes pay bigger money and better money for other co-stars that you're working with. You know, but I really enjoy the independent world. I work in the independent world a lot with some really very talented people. And I'd rather work quickly than rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and get tired, and, you know, all your initial instincts are best the first time. They're best when they happen to you while the film's rolling. And in all my major films, the best moments that have happened in an improv situation where the character told me what to do and I followed it. And back to your question about good directors, a good director to me is a person who knows exactly what they want and is very well prepared, and then is open for all the magic moments that happen and are able to fly with them. That's when the real magic happens on the set for me.
Well, I'll just give you an example. When I did the remake of the Crazies, how many of you saw that remake? Okay. Which is very entertaining. And I mean, I enjoyed it. It was like a $22 million budget, which I guess is kind of small now. So they called me in, they said I didn't need to do anything. I was just, just gonna have this cameo part. So I get there like at 6 o'clock in the evening, and around 8, the AD calls me and says, "Are you ready to sing the hymn tomorrow?"
Hi, do you have the ballet down?
I had like a 5 a.m. call, and I'm like, "What?" They said, you know the hymn you're singing," and I said, "No, I have not no hymn." And so now they send me the music over, and now they send me like a tape, with the music on it. And I'm in a motel in Iowa, so there's no way to play the tape. So then they got to find a tape recorder in the crew that could still play the tape. So I'm up like all night trying to learn this friggin', hymn. Then the next day, I get on set, and they say, "Oh, you need to go see the stuntman." And I'm thinking,
Oh boy.
the stuntman? What the hell? Stairs again? So I go, and they go, "Well, here's your bicycle." And I'm like, they looked at me and they said, "Well, you know how to ride a bicycle, right?" And I said, "Well, 50 years ago I rode." So now I got to relearn, and you do actually remember how to ride a bicycle. And have sex too. But so I'm riding this bicycle. So now I got to remember this hymn and the bicycle. It's 30 degrees below, really, really, really cold in Iowa. The director puts me in a sleeveless,
Of course.
thing with like no stockings, tennis shoes and socks. I'm freezing, and they're going to push me up the alley, and now I've got to hit like pools of light on certain moments of the song and go around Timothy Oliphant as close as I can without hitting him. I was so stressed out, from this, and I'm thinking to myself all the time, $22 million, and no one could tell me to do this. That's the difference to me. And so many crew people standing around, doing nothing, and 5 layers of makeup to make you look crazy, where George Romero would just say, "Be crazier in this scene."
Yeah.
He would act.
Yeah.
So that's
Sometimes,
the big
yeah,
difference.
a lot of overkill sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all of you have kept remarkably physically fit. And
Yes, we have.
we have to ask, what are some of your best tips? We'll start with you, Ben.
Well, I'm very active. I wake up really early, and I just don't stop until I go to sleep. I'm like a gazelle. I don't drive anymore, so I walk everywhere I go. I'm in the city, so I'm always walking. I think that's what keeps me in shape, actually, having to need to go get to where I'm going, and that's it. Yeah, and I try to eat as healthy as I can.
Lynn?
Chocolate? And alcohol.
Not in that order.
I had a 90-year-old aunt in Germany that said she had a shot at lunch and 2 shots for dinner, and she was good. And she made it to, I think, 97 or something like that.
Good on her. Yeah, it kills everything.
Yeah.
I work out with a trainer, and I power walk my dog 1.5 miles every day. Those of you that have seen me around this weekend know that if there is a dog, Dee is down on the floor.
Me and you both.
Yeah.
So,
Cujo.
Yeah.
so, how did you get started in the life coaching and healing? What were the goals that you had when you started doing that, Dee? And What keeps you doing it?
First of all, how many of you know that I do that?
I do.
Wow, two.
Now I do.
Now you do, yeah.
There we go.
Actually, I used to channel and get messages when I was a really little girl. Started about 8 years old when I said to my mom, something's wrong at Grandma's house. And the cat had gotten up and turned all the burners on, but they hadn't lit, so there was a lot of gas in it, stuff like that. My dad, after his suicide, visited me in my room. There's a lot of great stories, but anyway, cut to 30 years now ago. When I met Christopher, he was very involved in a science called conceptology, which was all about your beliefs create your life, which is, if you break down spirituality, religion, and brain science, they're all saying the same thing, guys. Mm-hmm. Whatever you believe, that's what your life shows up as. So when Christopher died, I dropped to my knees and said, I don't want to be a victim and I don't want to be pissed off. I want a way we can heal ourselves. So I asked, right? And I received within seconds the first download that said, use the light within yourself to heal yourself. And I went, yeah, I've heard that before at church. So I've spent the last 30, 35 years really channeling what that means. And I work with people all over the world now to teach them how to consciously create their lives.
How can people contact you?
I am DeeWallace.com.
Everybody get that.
I am Dee Wallace. It's really powerful work that's given me an amazing amount of freedom. Totally possible for you to cure yourselves physically. I have a lot of people that I've worked with that have done it. I can bring the information to them, but nobody can create, from my understanding, for another person. You have to take responsibility for your own self-creation. And most people want somebody else to blame why they can't. So whatever happened to you, if you keep using it for the reason that you can't do what you want to do now, you'll never get to do what you want to do now. They're not going to change. Your story isn't going to change. They're not going to forgive you. They're not going to forgive themselves. You just got to go, okay, thanks for the lessons that you gave me, and I'm moving on. I don't know how many of you know, my dad was a severe alcoholic, committed suicide, first time tried in my bed. My younger brother committed suicide 3 years ago. That's my story. If I keep using my story, I will never access the power of who I really am. Okay.
Before we go to the audience for some questions, I did want to ask kind of a fun question about what is your least favorite type of horror film in front of rabid horror fans? Now, it could be a particular film, it could be a genre of horror film. What is your least favorite? What are
Slasher films. Sorry, guys. I like a really good old horror film that develops characters that you care about. Yeah, instead of, hi, I'm Jake. Doesn't get me off.
The Human Centipede. Brutal.
Too feely for you, huh?
A little bit. Too close.
Oh boy. a room full of rabid horror fans. Wow. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I like older, cheesy horror. I like It's Alive. I Spit on You Great. Cujo's a great one.
Thank you.
But bloody horror films, let me put it to you this way, all right? I wouldn't do a horror film. I wouldn't do a film that instills fear in people. There's already enough fear in the world. I don't want to add to that, you know? So I've turned down a bunch already, you know, and there's stupid ones like Skate to Hell. No offense, but I'm sure it's going to be great. But it's just not my cup of tea. You know, I would like to be more geared towards comedy or cheesy kind of horror, old school, you know, where the milkman eats the baby.
You know, there is something really interesting. You guys should Google it. The psychological benefits of watching horror films. You'll be really surprised how good they are for your brain.
No.
Yeah. Google it. Google it.
I know it.
That's why, you know, little kids, when they watch the Disney pictures, they want the scary parts to be replayed over and over, and because in a safe place, they get to practice knowing that they're safe. Well, what are we doing when we go to a horror film? Same thing. Yeah, the world's never going to come to an end. I'll just go for the ride in here, but out there, you know, it's interesting. It's really interesting to Google.
Is it better to have it be a more realistic for psychological?
I don't know. Go to research.
Okay, we're going to go to the audience before I'm attacked. Does anybody have some questions? Yes, ma'am.
Question for Dee. When is your book coming out?
Yeah, second.
My newest book is out. It's called Born, Giving Birth to a New You.
And then your horror
Available on Amazon.
your horror one?
Oh, the horror one. I don't know. I haven't finished it yet. I do have a publisher, but it's not finished yet.
Any questions? Yes.
If there was a character each of you could play in a movie that you haven't done before, what would you want to be and why?
I would want to play, and always have, a nun who is really challenged and searching for the meaning of her faith.
Vivian Lee. Gone with the Wind.
There you go. But don't go crazy on it.
I won't kill anyone.
You know what? I can get into playing anybody pretty much. There's nobody I wish, you know, I could play, or, you know, if something interesting pops up that catches my attention,
With
definitely
the right parts.
check it out. What kind of parts?
With the right parts.
With the right parts in the right places. That's right.
So were there any roles that any of you missed out on that you regret that might have been offered to you and you didn't take, or
Sure.
that you want to share?
Do you remember the movie of the week, Adam?
Yes.
They offered it to me, and I was doing a film with Dom DeLuise that overlapped for one day, and they wouldn't let me out to do it, and they ended up then not shooting on that day. Yeah. So that was a bummer.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think I was up for a film called Canon Joe with Peter Boyle. Anybody see that? A long, long time ago. And I was very, very close to getting the part, but Susan Sarandon got the part. So I could have had her career.
Well, at least you lost out to a good actress, you know?
Yeah.
It's a real bummer when you lose out to somebody you can't walk or talk at the same time. Humiliating.
It happens.
Yeah,
I was
I won't
supposed
say
to
her,
play
no.
Tra-La-La in the last exit to Brooklyn. I had the paperwork and I took it home to have somebody look at it, and Jennifer Jason Leigh got it, I believe. I was
Yeah.
ready for that. I was so excited about it. So then I, dust myself off and I go out and I met Woody Allen, who was shooting a movie at the time. First of all, he's very particular. He had me meet him in his staircase, like the secret staircase. I'm like, what is this? Like, what am I doing here? And he won't give you the whole script, just one page at a time, right? Even to take home, like one page at a time. And the movie is untitled. A lot of them do that, though.
Yeah.
But I did the scene, and I got to work with some really wonderful people, and I just felt it was great. And then the New York Post, at page 6, somebody got a hold of it, and he wanted it under wraps. He wanted it private. He wanted, and it was like, oh, Patty Mullen from Death Bad is going to be in, Woody Allen's next movie. He cut the whole scene. Oh, I just heard about that, but that's my story.
Dear God.
One last question. Yes.
Hi, thank you so much, all of you.
Thank
I
you.
wanted to know if you have any thoughts on what women in particular bring to horror and where you see that going next.
So she asked
Yeah.
what women bring to horror and where you see them go next. Did I paraphrase that properly? Lynn, would you like to start with that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they bring a lot, to horror. And I love, the fact that there now are so many, heroic, women that, starting with I'm sure before Sigourney Weaver, but she's one of my favorites in Alien, that kind of tough, badass bitch, kind of character. And, I see that continuing on, and women, just taking over more and more men's roles, and the men will just be left out totally. But, it's great to do that. I just did a film called A Hard Place in Ohio, and I get to play kind of a badass woman with a gun and shooting people and doing all that, and it was very powerful, feeling, and it was great. So hopefully women will just keep going forward.
So true. In the past, nothing but victims. What's coming? Coming after that guy? No! Always.
Okay, John, one last.
I just want one question here, last one. I really want to say I appreciate everything you all did. Thank you so much for my childhood. And as I've gotten older, what I enjoy now, it's like, I look back at that old stuff you guys did, it's amazing. They cannot make anything as good as what it was back then.
Thank you.
The films today don't have the quality as the older films do. They don't have the actors. And to have you 80s women up here who did these films, you need a standing ovation and you need to be honored.
No, thank you.
You're very, very,
Thanks, Bob.
very blessed.
Thank you. I think it was brilliant. All these wonderful young ladies that are signing for you and available. Are all of you here through Sunday or?
I have to leave at 1 because they just called me back to shoot 911.
All right.
Monday morning at 6 a.m.
All right. Well,
Yay!
thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.